I see your demons, I'm telling them it's on sight. I'm just playing, I don't fight, I do pray. I only go the way of Mr. Yahweh. Try to correct me.
Well, welcome to the Profitable Cleaner, Tatiana.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tatiana Chamorro? Did I say it?
Chamorro.
Chamorro?
I
still can't roll my R's.
See, like it's
the gringo in me.
You can't roll his R's yet. He's learning Spanish, though.
Yeah.
Can you roll your R's?
No.
No, right?
Okay. It's been a year and a half.
Did you hear Chamorro? He can't roll the R.
No, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like,
exactly.
what?
Let's just be honest here. Anyways, we're super excited to speak with you today. We have this common connection, which is kind of uncommon, which is Nicaragua. You know, our producer, Andrea. And she was like, you have to have this powerhouse on the podcast. So Tatiana, in like a minute or less, you tell us about Tatiana, then I'm going to read something I have on my phone, and I want to go from there.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, I know.
Oh man, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Let's go.
Yeah, so I'm Tatiana. I'm originally from Nicaragua. I grew up in Nicaragua. I have been here for about 11 years almost. I came here in 2014 with my husband and my son. My son was 2 at the time. We were coming for just 1 year. And we landed in Commerce, Texas, which is very, we landed in Dallas, started driving for 2 hours, and then we were in Commerce. And I had never been in Texas back then. And we really were just coming for a year. So I was mentally prepared for that. And after a year, my husband graduated with his master's. He got a job offer, and we ended up staying. So the rest is history. We've been here now 11 years, and I call Dallas my home. And my daughter was born here, so I'm feeling more from Dallas than Nicaragua, which is crazy.
Really?
Yeah, that's what happens when you move to Texas. That's what happens. You become a Texan.
I mean, obviously, at my heart, Nicaragua is always there. It's where I grew up, where my family is at. My family has had heritage there for more than 300, 200 years. Who knows how much? 500, I don't know. But I think my soul is starting to feel like from here too.
Yeah, totally.
I would just gonna say something before you go. Is just finally somebody from Latin America can understand. Now they get it. When you move here, there is some pride that comes attached to the American dream with Texas. With as much as you love your home country, I'm Mexican. I was born in Mexico. There is. They don't get it until they live here. When you live here, I'm like, dude, it's just. I don't know how to tell you.
There's definitely a lot of pride. That initially I was like, what is this? And why are we, why is my son reciting the Texan...
Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge of Allegiance, yeah. I went to an American school in Nicaragua, and we would do the anthem every morning next to the Nicaraguan anthem. But I had no idea that we were, what's the Pledge of Allegiance? And now I'm like feeling a little pride when I hear it,
Yeah, good.
I still cry when they roll out that flag in those football games, so I get you.
I think that's beautiful, actually. Texas is the only state with its own Pledge of Allegiance, too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys knew that, but I never do this. I actually never have a phone on the podcast, but I was doing a little bit of research on you, and I was like, man, there's so many different avenues that we could speak of.
Yeah.
And you posted something on your Instagram, and I was like, I think this sums it up. And one word that came to mind was accomplishment. So at 20, you got married and became a mom. So a young mom, young marriage. 22, you moved here. Then 24, you're back in college. 26, you graduated debt-free with 7 scholarships.
That's wild.
Yes. And then at 27, bought your first home. A lot of people, even born here, never buy a home. So just 5 years after being here, you got a home. And then 29, graduated again debt-free. You made sure to put that with a master's. And at 30, became U.S. residents. And then 31, you're launching scholarships. You're being named a power leader here in Dallas. So the word that stuck to me was accomplishment. But there has to be some sort of drive behind that. So when you kind of hear all that, I guess, what comes to mind?
And there's still business awards that weren't even mentioned.
Yeah.
That's
like literally my
business,
screenshot ran off, wouldn't put it all.
Yeah. I think to me it's more grit. Like for me, I landed here and I landed in a whole different reality than what it was for me growing up. And suddenly I had no family. It was just me and my husband. I had only been a mom for 2 years and I was very young. And I also didn't have a degree when I got here. because I was not a U.S. citizen, I was restricted with the amount of things I could do. So I found myself feeling stuck. I felt like if this is going to be the rest of my life, I don't know that I want to be here. I don't know that I don't see myself here for 10 years. And it was really hard to realize that it was going to take a while. You know, like my friends, when I got here, I was 22. By the time I was 24, my friends already were some of them finishing their masters, getting married. I had already been married for 4 years. And so I started to see, it's really weird for me because I started to see that my life was walking very slow and everyone else was running. And I was not ready to go slow. You know, I was not ready for that to be my reality. I also didn't want to, in the back of my heart, like feel like a statistic. Oh, a young Latina that became a mom. You know, I had never even considered myself a Latina because everyone in Nicaragua is Latino. So like I didn't. Yeah. Then I landed here in Texas and I was suddenly plastered into these different buckets, and I really didn't like that. So I started to plan on what do I need to do next? Like, what's the one thing I need to accomplish? And I knew that my undergrad was the one thing that needed to happen. I knew that, though, before even coming here. So I had already studied and continued my education in Nicaragua. And so I came prepared with all of my grades. I had them all from the University of Nicaragua because I was like, I want to graduate from here. And it felt completely crazy and impossible because as an international student, we paid double the cost of tuition.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just me and my husband. And I was like, how am I going to do this? So the first year, being so limited, I started networking and finding opportunities. But for me, kind of like the way that it started and how it ended up going to the next step. Okay, suddenly I graduated and I'm like, okay, what's next? And I was like, I want to get my master's. And then I got my master's and I'm like, okay, what's next? Like, I just didn't want to continue losing on that momentum, even though I got to a place when I was 26 and suddenly or 27 and suddenly I had a home, I had a degree, I had a marriage, I had a kid, and I was already probably a little bit farther ahead than my friends. And so it wasn't that feeling of I'm being left behind or I'm going too slow. Now it was the feeling of, okay, I got this and I was able to do it, so what's next?
Yeah. But you've also accomplished things that not the average. So throughout this time, you also had a business, or did you start the business after?
So because of my limitations with the residency and student permits and all that stuff, legally I was not able to start a business until 2017, which is when I graduated from my undergrad and I got my OPT, which allows me to work for a year. So I didn't have a business prior to that. I had experience freelancing in Nicaragua, but I didn't run a business. And also, it's almost impossible with a kid and an undergrad and a part-time job.
You had a year. What did you accomplish in that 1 year?
Yeah.
So it's basically a ticking time.
It is, yes.
Right?
And I was very aware of it. So what I did is I launched my LLC, right? I submitted my LLC. And then I didn't fully launch the business because I didn't want to come in and start networking and offering my services. How do you tell a client, hey, you know what? Actually, my time is up and I have to go back to be a student. So let me just cancel the service. I can't do that. So what I started doing is I had one client that hired me for 6 months during that year. And that was able to allow me to stay for 6 months at home with my daughter. So they paid me quite well for that project.
Can I ask how much? Is that too much to ask?
No, it was like $35,000.
Nice, for 6 months?
Yeah.
It's good.
It's not, I didn't become a millionaire from it, but I was able to then
it's a good start.
Strategize for other things. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's still very good though.
Yeah.
Still more than a normal agency tends to charge. So that's very good. That's very good. And so walk us a little bit, then what's next? What kind of, because you got to now, which if you search a little bit about you, I mean, there's speaker, then you scaled a few companies to like 5 million. You have a few companies. I believe you do real estate investing.
We do real estate, yeah.
You do a lot.
I think that for me, I don't feel any different than when I was 22. Like I don't see those things. I'm like, whoa, look at no, I actually feel the same way I felt when I graduated my master's or my undergrad. It's like, okay, what's next, right? For me, I started my business after that 1 year of OPT, I went back, I did my master's. I applied to a couple scholarship, which is how I graduated debt free as well. And then I decided to launch my business. Now, a lot of things were God and just like the timing of things, because the year that I graduated my master's, which was COVID, a month after I graduated, we got our residency. So without getting the residency, I wouldn't have been able to launch my business because I would have had to gotten a work permit or who knows right? But because of that, we became U.S. residents, and now I was able to do whatever I wanted with my business.
Yeah.
So that's when I started it, and we launched my marketing agency that year. And then prior to that, we started investing in real estate in 2017. Now, I have to give credit to my husband because he's the mastermind behind all the real estate. He really likes numbers and...
Shout out to her husband. What's his name?
Carlos.
Shout out to Carlos.
And he's, I call him my financial advisor. So when I'm with someone, I'm like, I'll check with my financial advisor. But yeah, he's the one that started in real estate and really identifying everything. I mean, just to tell you a little bit about that, when we got here, we applied for a card for Walmart, so that we could have, some credit there. Yeah. And it was denied. And I think those little moments like that, it was like such a difference from me growing up in Nicaragua and having access to a lot of resources and support. And, I grew up very privileged there. And then coming here and applying to a Walmart credit card and not being able to get it, we were like, what is this? So we realized that we needed to start building credit because obviously, if you're not from here, you don't have credit, which could be a good thing because it might mean that you're not starting with negative credit, you're starting with zero credit. And so we started building that, and we knew that we needed to do that in order to buy our first house. So we started doing that in like 2015. And the first thing we did, we bought a car, and then we sold it, and then we used that to pay for the first payment for another leased car. And through the leasing, we were able to build the credit.
Husband and you sound very smart, though. Not just anybody that comes thinks that way and starts doing, they're more in survival. But most people don't know that when you come, you can get a credit card. The chances of you getting a job are very low. Yeah. Like, people think that it is the American dream, but when you come, it's a survival.
I think more than that is like... bit. If you're coming with the intention to build, like if you're coming and you want to become the VP of Coca-Cola, you can't start as VP of Coca-Cola. And some people don't want to put the work that it requires to get to VP of Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, right? Like you can't start with a Tesla or a Cybertruck. You start with something small. You build the credit. And by the way, I'm not a fan of buying expensive cars. That's not for me. I think it's a depreciating asset and it's not needed. But, just in the subject.
We're driving a Tesla right now, and Dan that has this building loves the Cybertruck, so he would disagree. Just kidding. No, but he likes them as toys. He doesn't like them as assets. I agree.
Yeah, and it also depends, right? There's it's a business expense, blah blah blah. There's different strategies, but if you're starting out with nothing, don't go and buy the Cybertruck.
100%.
So I have a question for you. When you first got here to the U.S., did you see yourself as like businesswoman and this force that you became, or was it just like, I'm getting here, figuring it out, gonna get educated?
Hey, what's up, guys? Today's episode is brought to you by Cinch. If you're ready to take your commercial cleaning business to the next level, we have you covered. Maybe you're struggling with how to bid, how to create professional looking proposals, or just how to ensure your customers' accounts are actually being cleaned at night. Introducing Cinch Janitorial Software. Cinch is a simple, user-friendly software that eliminates these types of struggles that you probably know all too well. Cinch simplifies your entire process and will supercharge your success because they remove paperwork headaches while creating a scalable, efficient, and profitable cleaning business. Get your free demo of Cinch at cleancinch.com. They're here to turn your business into a success story. That's cleancinch, CINCH.com. It's simple. It's Cinch.
I'm just wondering, how has the identity shift of you and what you do evolved since you've gotten here?
Yeah, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family.
Okay.
My grandfather was an entrepreneur. His dad was an entrepreneur. My dad is an entrepreneur. All my uncles are entrepreneurs. So I grew up going to board meetings. I grew up going to conversations around, I remember there was this company from Mexico that we hired to redesign all of our website and the design of our newspaper. And I was invited to those meetings. When we launched a magazine in Nicaragua, I was invited to the launch party. So I was always exposed to these different types of scenarios. But I had no idea. And quite honestly, I didn't even understand what it meant to lead a business, to run a business, to start a business. So I think I always saw myself as an entrepreneur, but I don't think I understood what that meant.
What does an entrepreneur mean?
Yeah. I think an entrepreneur is the equivalent of a combination between grit and just keep going, and finding a balance between the different things, the complexity that you need to manage in life, whether it is, and quite honestly, I think we have all a little bit of entrepreneurship because even I reflect that into me being a mom and having to manage, even when I was working full time, having to manage my job versus then, taking the kids to the doctor or doing this, that complexity of multitasking and management skills, that's something that is also reflective in an entrepreneur.
Well, I think we all have the gift of creation because that's what it is. The entrepreneurship is creating from zero or improving something, but it's all creation. And so, we're made in the image and likeness of God. So I think we have the power that He does, which is create.
And that's a good point because so often we confuse entrepreneurship with being a business owner. And I think when I started my agency, I realized the difference without, I did my master's in marketing. You have all the theories and you read in the book, but then you see it and it kind of clicks.
Yeah.
And so I saw a lot of my clients who were business owners, but they weren't entrepreneurs. And what I mean by that is they had bought a business or maybe they're running their business, but it's very monotonous. They're not thinking bigger. They're not wanting to create more. They're wanting to just stabilize.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with that.
That's actually really good. Business owners want to stabilize. Man, that's really well said. I think entrepreneurs have to be thinking the 5 next moves. And not saying that those moves are necessarily always going to be the right moves, but you're at least thinking forward is how I would probably put it. Talk to me a little bit. Where does this I just get this tenacious drive from you.
What's next?
Yeah,
seems like a theme.
What's next is the theme, but what's the driving force here? I mean, it just seems I could go down the list of what you've done, but you get here, you hit the ground running, you grew up, and you seem like a learner to me, but what's this driving force?
And COVID wasn't too far out. It's 4 years ago where you started your business, but it seems you've accomplished a lot in those 4 years. Yeah,
I think there's a lot that I can't share yet of the, people, I'm you should have a 1-year plan, a 5-year, a 10-year. I have my 10-year plan, but I definitely believe it is attainable, but I'm not ready to share more what that looks like. But I think the driving force is realizing one day, and I'll get super personal here, but when I got married with my husband, we had been dating for 2 years. And I realized that I was very blessed to have someone that said, yeah, go back to school. We'll pay with my salary. But what about the women that don't? What about the women that had their kid and their husband's you don't need to learn anything. You don't need to go back to school. Why are you going to go study? Why do you need to be a business owner? And instead, I found myself in a position of privilege where my husband was propelling me to do that, right? He was no, I'll be the stable income. You can go go be crazy. And I realized that I wanted to be that for other women because not all of them have it. Yeah. And a lot of times I could see how I could become even a better mom because I was able to maneuver my time and balance what I was doing to be more present for my children through entrepreneurship or business ownership. And I want that for more kids. I want that for more moms. And so I think there's just something in me that wants to see change and wants to be a part of it. Yeah. Especially being exposed to so many opportunities here. I'm how is this not something that we can multiply? For example, my husband and I launched the scholarship last year. The scholarship is essentially the same scholarship I received when I was doing my undergrad, one of them. So basically with $1,000 or more in the state of Texas, I don't know if for every university, but at least for the one where I was, you immediately pay in-state tuition. So if you do the math, let's say that tuition for me as an international student is $30,000 a year in a public institution. With $1,000, it would lower to $10,000, $15,000, whatever that is, which means that already with one scholarship of $1,000, you're paying 50% less in tuition.
Wait, so for one, if they get one scholarship of $1,000 or more, they're considered, they go from international to in-state tuition?
Yep.
Whoa, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
So, okay, I think that's awesome. So at what moment were you like, we're doing these scholarships? And like, how do you even create a scholarship?
Yeah. Well,
That sounds crazy to me.
no, actually, and everyone listening should be doing a scholarship
Okay,
because,
talk to us.
yeah. So what I did is I was really good friends with who became now the vice president of alumni for Texas A&M Commerce, which is where I graduated from. But really, if you reach out to your university, nobody in the alumni center is going to say no to you donating, right? Now, the thing is, it works so beautifully because what we do is we did a 10-year endowment. And what that means is that the scholarship will run for 10 years. But after that, I believe that it still has a lifetime. It's somewhere, that technicality you'll have to talk to the university. But basically the way that it works is you talk to the university alumni center or whoever handles the scholarships. And then you tell them that you want to do a scholarship. And then you do a scholarship. It's very simple.
I like that. That's cool.
How do you, is it the university that's involved in the process of identifying the candidate? Is it you? What's that?
That's a good question. So we launched the scholarship with Texas A&M Commerce because if it weren't for them and the people that gave me the scholarship, I don't think I would have been able to cover cost of tuition.
Yeah.
So that clicked to me. I was like, okay, I know that with $1,000 you pay in-state tuition, I want to create this scholarship.
That's crazy.
And initially my husband and I wanted it to be specifically to an international family like us, right? We couldn't make those restrictions. So this answers your question.
Yeah.
So when you do it through a public institution, they have a scholarship committee. So what I can do is I can create my scholarship and pay for, give them the money, and they will have a committee that decides who from the applicants are going to get the scholarships. Now, I would love to be involved in that. One of the things that we create now, I can dictate what the criteria is, right? The only thing I cannot do is I cannot say only international students because it's a public institution. But one of the things that we asked is for the students to create a video of awesomeness. So instead of like that boring essay that you have to submit and, like that 7-page resume or whatever it is that they're asking, we're asking for one video where you tell us why you're awesome and what you're planning to do in the future. So that's the criteria we had. There's 2 other things that we added in the criteria. I wish I could see everybody that applied. The only thing I can see is who receives it. So we'll receive a thank you letter from the student that received the scholarship. But one of the things that I think needs to change in the, in academia is that I was actually having this conversation yesterday. So there were only 5 students that applied. And only 1 received it. But we have a scholarship that is for 2 people. We have enough for 2 people. So the question is, why are more students not applying? I know that students are needing the money. And if you see institutions, a lot of times they don't award all the scholarships. This is not just for the university where I donated. It is in general. Students don't know that that's there. And a lot of times they're lazy. They don't want to, it's better to go the loan way versus a scholarship because you got to apply to 30 and then get maybe 2, right? Yeah. So it's just my thought process behind how do we create that ease. And a big part, and this is where my business mindset comes in, is the call to action, right? So I told the university, hey, what can I share in my social media so people apply? And it's just very complex. You got to apply to be a student. You got to be accepted into the program. And then you have to apply to the scholarship. So if it were easier for students to apply, it would be easier for then younger millennial donors to be able to promote it. Imagine how many influencers could create scholarships and then share the way in which you apply, right? Yeah, exactly. It could even be a way in which universities recruit. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud here.
No, I think you're absolutely right. The more you talk, though, it sounds like you're very passionate about creating opportunities for people.
Yeah, definitely.
So you have experience with building teams in Nicaragua, as do which is a commonality that's not so common amongst people here. Obviously, you being from there. We were talking before we hit record here about just like the talent pool of people in Nicaragua.
Just don't give too much insight on the pool, because then we'll all not have enough.
No, I want to provide as many.
See, hold on. That is the mindset that doesn't work.
Yeah.
I know you're kidding, but for anyone listening, one of the things that makes it so hard is we all know how great people in Nicaragua are.
I would agree.
And I do believe that being a smaller country and having probably no middle class and the lack of education, there's not enough people for everybody, right? Like there's not enough employees that can sustain all the companies in the U.S. That's why there's other expansion into other Latin American countries. I do believe Nicaraguan employees are top notch in the Latin American ecosystem, but
Do you say that just because you're from there?
definitely no.
Definitely no. Nice.
I would agree with that.
No, I mean,
I'm Mexican, and we've tried to go into Mexico, and the prices are very similar now, like the pay, but man, are we lazy? Like, I don't know how to tell you, bro, like, don't get me wrong, we're hard workers, but like I go down there because I have family there. Learning English is still not mandatory to a family, and that trips me out. And that's because we're a second world country, I guess. Maybe because we're not a third world country, you can create opportunities within there. But in Nicaragua, like anyone you meet, almost everyone I've met, solid English. Like,
yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not biased. Obviously, I'm biased, but...
we're all biased here.
But so I was actually born in Costa Rica,
Okay.
and my mom's family lives in Costa Rica. I consider myself a Nicaraguan, and I think I'm saying that with an understanding of what I have lived now that we have employed people in Nicaragua,
Yeah.
right? Prior to
Yeah.
that, it was just from knowing people and seeing.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are you up to now?
Yeah. So now I have joined a startup here in Dallas called Toucan Cocktails, like the bird. And
I love that you clarified it. Okay, Toucan Cocktails, I love
yeah.
it.
And the website is like the bird toucan
Yep.
and then cocktails.com. And so we're launching a drinking technology. So funny story, when I had my agency, one of my clients was Toucan Cocktails, and they were a startup back then. They started in 2020, and they had offered me to come on board as their advisor for the startup. And so I said yes, and I advised them for about 2 years. And then last year, when I decided to move away from my agency, they contacted me. I did a market research analysis. It was very comprehensive. We did like a competitor analysis. We looked at buyer personas. Then what does that look like translated to digital strategy, blah, 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 right? And so I did that, and I presented it to them, and I did a plan. And I said, if you hire someone, this is what you should be implementing. And so they were like, let's go have lunch. And then they were like, why don't you join us?
You said somebody to do it. So, yeah, exactly. How long did it take you to create the market analysis?
So I had promised it in a month. I definitely would have liked to take in a little more, but it took me a month.
For those that don't know here, because I graduated with a degree in marketing. I didn't go through the MBA part because I fell in love with entrepreneurship like right off the bat. Quick question. Walk someone what a marketing analysis would go through. Most people don't know how to even create a marketing plan. They think there's just content, but there's no research, there's no buyer personas, there's no SWOT analysis. What is give us a quick list of things that you like to hit. If somebody said, how can I get you a marketing analysis? So
before we do that, I think that there's two types of marketing analysis. The first one is the traditional one that we learn in college, which has, market size. It has purchasing power of that market size in the industry insights, and then it can have a SWOT analysis, and then it has more of a strategic approach to your budget and the financial analysis and how you can then move that into different buckets of what you're investing in marketing. Understanding the financial landscape is going to be very important for marketing spend, because if you don't understand it, you'll probably be wasting your money because you don't really know how much to allocate. And if you don't understand your profit margin, then that doesn't really translate well into how to make money through marketing. So that's the basics. For me, and especially now being an entrepreneur, I understand when entrepreneurs are like, oh my gosh, I don't have time. A month to see all that information? I need to know what we're going to do now.
Yeah.
So to me, a marketing analysis for a company should include general knowledge, not two paragraphs of the industry. And when I say that, I say like understand the trends within the industry, because if you don't understand the trends, you won't know where to, grow. The second thing that I think it needs to include in there is definitely more of like understanding your brand. So for us, we defined our brand manual. We understand what the colors are. We created that, let's say, the Bible of consistency, right? That will dictate then. And that's so important because it's not just for me as a business owner to know. It's also that if I hire a marketing agency, or if I hire, or let's say I'm on TV, I can send them all these information and the brand will be consistent no matter where I'm showing up. Yeah. So that's going to be very important. And then the last part, which is where I think it hasn't been modernized enough in academia, and it has to be, is more on the market and the competitor analysis. Yeah. And I say that because the traditional competitor analysis is like, what are your competitors doing? How much are they selling their product for? Do they have brick and mortar stores? That kind of stuff. But now with digital, you can literally see what people are doing online everywhere. And more specifically, companies.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can go to LinkedIn, see how many employees they have. When I did the market analysis, I even identified how much some of our competitors had raised in capital, because that's available. There's apps where you can see how much e-commerce sites.
Too.
Yeah, ad spend definitely. How much e-commerce sites are generated in revenue. So if you have that information from your competitors, you can then understand their go-to-market strategy. So one of the things I saw from one of our competitors is first of all, nobody was spending Google ads. So I already know that I'm not going to make money in Google ads, because if I can see that competitors tried it and then they stopped it, why would I start there, right?
That's a huge takeaway real quick, because a lot of people see it backwards.
Yeah,
they're like, ooh, they don't do Google ads. If no one does Google ads, then I should do Google ads because I'll be different.
I'm the first one to think of it.
And it's like, no. Especially if your competitors are already bigger or they already have a bigger market share, they probably tried it. So be strategic on how you approach that.
And I think it depends, right? Because it could be twofold. It could also be that you're being innovative. But if we're talking about a company that has already raised or generated $10 million, then they probably know, and they have probably a bigger marketing team than you.
Yeah.
So they have the money to test it. And if you don't, you got to consider that, right? Because trying to be creative might get you to lose money. And then depending on where you are in business, it might have you,
huge lesson there. Huge lesson there. Everybody's like, be unique, be creative. And he's like, no. Relax. Yeah. Don't reinvent the wheel. Yeah, exactly. Not saying you don't have to sometimes. Like, did you see that drink, the best marketing strategy ever on Instagram? Where, like, she was an intern and the CEO, and they had this weird drink, and no one liked the name. Uh-huh. So they told her, hey, if you get 500,000 followers in 30 days.
The one that she smashed it?
Yeah, and she's just mashing cans. And now the can is called Smash. And I'm like, whoa, like, and Gary Vee got involved, all these people, and I'm like, that's a smart, like, a little different, but that's smart. Like,
but you know what the
power
difference
of social
there
media
is that doesn't cost anything.
Well, so she revealed they actually put a bunch of money into it,
but probably not initially. They probably, because I think what I saw is they started pushing once they started getting views.
Yeah.
Right, but you don't start with an ad spend of $5,000.
Agreed. Once it caught that organic, then she said, I think they put like 30,000, but like, when they started picking up steam, 100%. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt that.
No.
No, that's good. So let me ask you a question. Now you can look at also like buying behaviors through the social media, right? Because like there's even websites that you can see what their old websites used to look like. Uh-huh. So you can also see like, oh, they used to post about or had this, now they are doing this. So why did they make that change? Do you do that kind of analysis and stuff?
Yeah, so yes, and I think what I like to do and what I realized is that modernizing the marketing strategic approach is so needed, because we are not taught how many tools are out there to actually analyze competitors. Here's the thing though. If I look at competitor and it tells me that they're spending $300 in ad spend a month, that means nothing unless I connected with what does that mean, right? So if I can see that they're spending $300 a month in ad spend, and then I can see that their website is ranking higher than 6 months prior, now I'm connecting dots. And that's what's important there. Because you cannot just go into Moz and see what their SEO looks like. That'll be good to get started, but it's not good to fully understand the picture of the investment and what their growth pattern looks like, right?
So you just dropped a software, Moz. Why don't we break it down for people, because we have a lot of service-based companies that listen to us that So yeah. What is Moz? Why is that?
Is Moz a software? No, right?
It's like a website.
Yeah. So, but yeah, talk to us about some of those tools that you use. Someone listening that might be able to be like, okay, I get having a competitive analysis or market research. What should I really look for when looking at competitors? And then what do I do with this data? So I know a lot of companies that will do a market analysis and like we did it, we checked that box and then really stray away from it. So like maybe just talk to the listener that has a service-based business. It's like, this is interesting, but how does this apply?
Or even better, if you were a cleaning company and I asked you to advise us today, what would be your... What steps would you take? Yeah.
The first thing I would do is, who are your 3 top competitors? And when I say that, the biggest mistake I saw when I had my agency is that people would be like either, oh, nobody does it like we do, or we're innovative, so nobody's really, they're not real competitors. And what I like to explain, and this is good for anybody listening that is not a marketer, is that when a marketer asks you for competitors, they're not really asking you for who do you think sells a product like you do. They're asking you for who do you think could be wanting the same digital space online that you want to have. So when I type cleaning services, who do you think would also want to show up there? And that could be also not a cleaning company. And that will make them a competitor too, right?
What's up, Profitable Cleaner listeners? Quick question for you. Are you using 5 to 7 different platforms just to manage the everyday operations of your commercial cleaning company? If so, let us help you consolidate that into one platform. Introducing you, uSource. Go to usource.com, book your free demo today, and actually get started on your trial for 60 days. No charge for 60 days, all from time and attendance to reporting, vendor management, operations, sales. It's time you stop using 5 to 7 platforms and consolidate into one. So listeners, don't forget, go to usource.com and start your account today.
You type in cleaning services online.
Yeah.
Good.
And you see who shows up and then identify who would be a competitor. So before going into Moz, identify who you want to be looking at what they're doing. And the other thing I see they do is they tell me, like I had this potential client, I don't remember, who I was like, okay, who's your competitor? And they were like, Salesforce. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like you go into Moz and you look at Salesforce, you're never going to be there with the budget that you're telling me. So like be realistic. Salesforce is an aspiring competitor. That's that's where you want to be, but that's not where you are right now.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be important because if you look at the data of Salesforce, that's not going to give you any strategy on where you need to get started, right? It's the same idea of like coming to the US and becoming VP of Coca-Cola. Like, where do you need to start, So that's the first thing. But then Moz is a website that's free. I mean, there's a paid subscription, but for anyone listening that wants to try it out, it's free. You can go in and what you do is you copy the domain of the website or the link of the website into Moz, and then Moz will tell you data. And that data will be basically specifically to SEO. So SEO is search engine optimization. It allows you to rank on Google. And it also tells you information on like what is, let's say, your digital footprint in terms of organic. So when you're showing up, what does it look like compared to the parameters that Google has established as reputable or someone that would be showing up? So those are the benchmarks you want to look at. Number of keywords that you're ranking for, your domain authority, which means how it goes from 0 to 100. Going closer to 100 is better, right?
Yeah.
Those different parameters. So very simple.
I think it's little things like this that, especially like cleaning companies listening, you hear these buzzwords all the time: SEO, Google ads, pay-per-click, all of the above. And it's like, typically we want to do all of these things just because we hear about these things, not realizing that not everything is for every business. And just having like a baseline idea of like where you rank on Google or where your local competitor ranks on Google, like that's a place to try to strive to be at, right? If they're killing it in organic, they're killing it with leads, right? And knowing that this stuff doesn't happen overnight, but you have to have a baseline. And I think a lot of companies don't, like, especially in our industry, the cleaning industry, they're like, well, we hope this works, and then they go.
Yeah, I think in most industries, actually. I think it's rare where, unless you're a SaaS. SaaS usually tends to be a little more But even then, I think research. I think people just want it so instant that they're not down to do the month of work to figure out this whole research. Because you didn't even present full strategy. You just, here's an analysis. Now you turn that analysis into something.
I would say the analysis is very important for like startups because they're going to be raising capital. And that type of information is really good for when you present to an investor. I would say that for business owners, obviously it's important, but I understand how you want to just get started and launch because it's going to be more important to generate revenue, right? Mm-hmm. What I would say to a business owner is that you have to understand, and this is what I saw, a lot of business owners were like, well, that's what I'm paying a marketer for. Like, I want them to tell me where I should be advertising, and then I want them to maneuver it and like, adapt it and change it and make it profitable. And that's true. That is a marketer's role. However, and especially small business owners who don't have like a head of marketing in their company, I would say from your end, just understand your baseline of cost versus profit versus revenue, and how many contacts do you need to receive from someone or from a marketing agency or from a marketing strategy to see profitability in that investment. And the other side that I would say is understand that an investment in marketing is more than just investing in Google Ads to see a return. It is a long-term investment in brand recognition too. And that is something you can't quantify. So you have to be okay with that, right? I'm not saying you're not going to make money out of it. But if making money out of it is a big priority, then understand how many leads do I need to get and how many do I need to convert into clients so that I see a return. Yeah.
What are you still taking clients on right now? Or are you just focusing on Toucan Cocktails?
Fully focused on Toucan Cocktails.
Let me ask you, what's next for you and Toucan Cocktails?
Yeah. So we're launching July 15th. We're going to be doing e-commerce, and probably here within the next few months, you're going to start seeing us at different stores. I'm very, very excited about Toucan Cocktails because I came on as CMO of Shake and Beverage Co. Shake and Beverage Co. is the company that owns Toucan Cocktails. So if you search our drink, we call it our drinking technology. So basically what it does is it separates the alcohol from the cocktail mixer. So it's not pre-mixed. So it doesn't taste like all the other pre-mixed drinks that are terrible. And so the way that works is it has a small 100 ml can on the top, which allows us to use really high quality liquor. And then on the bottom, it has the cocktail mixer. But the beautiful thing about that is that we are a technology company. So we are white labeling the usage of connecting two cans to other companies. And we're able to also offer them the creation of build your own brand with us. We have the experience on building brand manuals, logos. That is what I did in my previous agency. I built an agency of brand manuals and logos. We served, I would say, over 50 clients a month. And so now I want to do that within the CPG industry and helping other smaller brands be able to do that.
So this is not for the bigger ones can approach y'all, of course, but the idea is helping at least the white label side. The white label side under Shake and Beverages is going to be something that it's a great, definitely we can serve bigger companies. Right now we have about a 20% capacity that is filled with the warehouse that we have here in Dallas. So we have about an 80% that we can then use to manufacture cans for other companies. But it's a great option for smaller companies that are wanting to launch, because usually, let's say you want to start a CBD drink, because that's super in right now. And so you want to create your own design and you want to get your cans printed so you can see them and maybe take them to a couple places where you can do a demo. That's very expensive. A lot of places will not print you 5,000 cans, which is still a high number for a small business owner,
absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So with us, you can do that because we have a shrink wrapper and we are able to add the design and create not just the design, but also build that physically, real.
Nice.
I like that. And then do you help them with distribution basically at that point as well? Because you already have the network of...
Okay. Yeah, we have 3 different tiers. So one is launch your own brand, which includes everything, the consulting on the distribution. One is that more shrink sleeve services, and the other one is more on the canning and that stuff.
And this is for cocktails?
No, actually.
Because now I'm thinking like beers now. I'm thinking beers and breweries and that want to see it in a can form. So it doesn't have to be the technology of the mixer and the drink, correct? It could also be a brewery.
So we are launching cocktails. under our brand, but our technology can be used for anything, and it actually connects different types of cans. So right now we are using it for, in the bottom, it looks like a beer can, like it's the same type of can, and the top is a small can, and we have a ring that's a utility patent that connects both cans, right? So you're able to like open the top, pour it into the bottom, connect it with the ring, and then shake it like a cocktail shaker. But you can use it for anything. I mean, you can use it for like beer and michelada.
Well, because then also the bar, depending on, so like I used to go to a lot of music festivals, shows. Mm-hmm. Now you don't have to carry 100 bottles with a bunch of cups with a nice thing. You just put them on your fridge. Hey, I want a cocktail. Sounds good. Boom. Yep. The bartender just does it, shakes it, gives it over.
Yep.
Very intriguing. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I just love where your mind goes, like from an entrepreneur standpoint. So obviously marketing, you know, big believer in education. Now you're doing cocktails, distribution. I mean, I'm going to ask you a very broad and general question, but it kind of is the theme that kicked off this show. So, all right, you're in the cocktail industry now, or the distribution industry, whatever you like to call it. What's next for Carlos and Tatiana?
I think my plan is to fully focus on our company for the drinking technology, shake and beverage, for the next 5 years, probably. I want to become a philanthropist. That is one of my goals. I have no idea what that means for me. So every year I keep understanding and redefining what that looks like. I think that philanthropy is such a external thought, especially for within the Hispanic community. And one day I was just thinking, you look at developed countries, and a lot of the developments happen because people were willing to come and give and build so that society can continue growing, right?
Yeah.
And you don't see that in Latin America. I mean, Nicaragua has billionaires, it has millionaires, and yet you don't see those institutions that are created just to help people learn. Yeah, and so I agree. You know, I'm not there yet. I'm not building anything yet, but I want to identify what does that look like for me. And I also want to be okay with it. I don't have to be a billionaire to be able to create that level of impact. It can start by, you know, I offer mentorships. If you are starting your business, you can schedule a time with 100%. Me. The scholarship is a little step there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then I started an organization to help women start, grow, and sell businesses. I just haven't launched it yet because I want to define what it looks like. And what I don't want it to become is another female networking group, or I don't want it to become another coaching that you have to pay $5,000. Like I'm not into that. I am into actually creating that impact. So for me, it's defining what that looks like and being okay with the fact that building wealth needs to be a part of that journey.
How can our listeners support that? How can we support that?
Buy cocktails.
Get drunk. No. But like, is there anything outside of that, or even that? Is there anything that you're looking specifically for? Because we could, like, can they buy a can when they're out? Of course.
No, I mean, right? That's not gonna.
But it's not gonna move the needle. And since we do have a lot of listeners, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of women also that want to impact their community, and a lot of them do have their
actually a lot of people
their support centers. They have their support centers in their home country, so like they do want that. So is there anything? I'm sure they're gonna listen to this and be like, oh man, we want to get involved with her. I know it's gonna happen. So what would you?
I mean, I'm a speaker, so anytime that there's a conference, I'm looking for places where I can start sharing more of this mindset. But then more. In terms of involvement with me, I think I can see myself coming in, serving boards. If you're wanting to have critical thinkers that are millennials, I'm there. Then also speaker. I can come in as speaker. But then also what I would love for anybody listening is to start thinking of how they can also become philanthropic. Because it doesn't need to be, you don't have to be a millionaire. I mean, even just mentoring someone within your company is a form of philanthropy. Mm-hmm. And I just want to really push that mindset change in everyone and be able to become a voice of what does it look like to be a modern philanthropist.
Yeah, I like it.
So well said.
Yeah, I can already think of a lot of things that we can do to support you, so we'll definitely do so. Any final words for everybody that's listening, that's seeing you?
I think that if there's anything that I want to say and for people to really remember is that you gotta keep going and have some plans. Like for me, I felt very stuck, and I have felt very stuck multiple times. When I transitioned out of my business, suddenly my email was not the same, and now I didn't know how to introduce myself, and I had to start all over again, and that is okay. And I'm not gonna say that it became easier than when I was when I was a mom here and I couldn't study, and then everyone else had already graduated. It wasn't easier, it was different.
Yeah.
But I would just say, as long as you have goals that you are working towards, and have those like big goals. Like for me, a big goal was graduating, which seems so silly because, it's silly and it's not, right? For me, it was not at that moment. So having those big goals and then having small things that need to happen for that big goal to happen, and then just keep going. But what I would say is don't stop moving. Like if you just are like, I'm going to rest today. No, you are not in a moment to rest. If you rest today, you're going to be resting 10 years from now too. And then the goal is never going to come.
100%. Man, I'm excited. Guys, if you relate to the modern philanthropist, if you want to make more impact, reach out to Tatiana. Thank you so much for being here. And I can already think of a lot of people to connect you. So I'm excited to do so.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And shout out to Andrea. Thank you for the connection and scheduling this.
I was like, what are you?
Yeah, what are you looking at? Right there.
You can work.
Yeah, that one's yours right there. There you go. Thanks.
Thank you.